Thanks for watching this episode of Turning to Him. I invite you to just take a few seconds right now at the beginning and subscribe to this channel so that you can get more videos like this in your feed. Thanks again. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Turning to Him. I'm really excited about the person that I'm speaking with today. This is Eric Richardson. Eric and I are good friends. We're actually in the same ward, so he's put up with a lot of things from me. I'm really surprised that he even agreed to talk with me when he's not forced to do so. Eric, how you doing tonight?
Good. I was forced to speak with you last Sunday too in church.
It's horrible. You have the patience of Job. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's great. It's great.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself. I always say, give us the dinner appointment rundown.
Okay. Well, I'm first and foremost the father of a good family size. We got 6 children. So I've got 2 daughters and 4 boys. And it's the joy of my life. It's kind of what it's all about. We love to go camping. We love to do things outdoors. We also are big into computers and technology, music. I'm a DJ on the side, do fun things like that. And we just try to make it through life. We like to serve people, and church is a big part of it. And having
How did you get into DJing?
Oh, it's a fun story. I'll make it short. So back in high school, some of the school dances, the DJs were so bad that my friends and I, we said we should have an alternate prom. So we went to DI and we scrounged up some old speakers and amplifier and put out invites and just had an informal alternate prom. And we got a few people that first year, and we blew the amp, trying to push too much to it. Next year we got a little better equipment, and we did it again, and we got like 50 couples. So
Oh, wow.
it was a pretty good size event that time, and I really enjoyed it. It was just fun playing music. I've always liked music, and so it's kind of fun being the DJ. So from that point on, I kind of bought more stuff from DI, and we did a couple more dances. Then along came college, and I actually got hired to do a couple of the institute dances. Then that money just kind of pours into the system, make it a little bit better. Then my friends started getting married, and they started hiring me for that. And lo and behold, now 25 years later, we just keep pouring money into it. Now it's a really good system, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I've done everything from political fundraisers to weddings, parties, proms, school dances. But my favorite are anything with kids. Youth dances, and especially elementary school, like sock hops or daddy daughter dances, are the best. Those are so much fun.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I'm not a rave DJ. I'm the I'm the dad DJ.
You don't have like a big foam head that you put on and
Thought about it.
and things. Yeah. Sounds good. Well, you and I had been speaking a little bit before we started recording, and you mentioned that there was an experience that you wanted to share about how you turned to Christ, how you've turned to Him.
Yes.
Give us a little background first. Give us a warm up to it.
Okay. So I was born of goodly parents. I have a good blessing in my life.
Familiar phrase?
Yep. Some great parents. They had family home evening regularly, scripture time. They taught us the gospel. And I relied on their testimony to a degree growing up. And in high school, it improved, especially in the Book of Mormon class. Served a mission, and came back with even a stronger testimony at that time.
Where did you serve?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, PA. Okay. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, good old foreign land there.
Yep.
And then after getting married, it was great. Started having children and a family, and joined a furniture company. I did retail furniture for a good 12 years. And then things changed. Then this was during the dock strike of 2008. 2014, 15, excuse me. On the West Coast, longshoremen went on a dock strike. Product was not moving. That was from that shoreline. And so in the world of retail and furniture, we weren't getting product. And I don't know if you remember that stock strike, but it lasted for 9 months. And so our inventory dried up, and salespeople started to quit because they didn't have anything to sell. And it was really struggling. In fact, 27% of all retail furniture stores went out of business over that year.
Oh my gosh.
So it decimated some of the retail businesses. Our furniture store that I worked for survived it, but towards the end, this was now in December, we were very short staffed, and so they basically management told me I'd have to work 90 days straight without a day off, 12-hour shifts. And they didn't have anyone to cover for me because everyone else was short too. So at that point, I went home and I talked with my wife, and we had to determine, is this something we're going to do, or is this something that we're going to move on from? And we'd been thinking about the fact that this was working on Sundays, it was retail hours, we worked every holiday. I had 4 little kids, and my wife was feeling a little bit lonely,
Yeah.
like a single parent. And my
How old your oldest at this point?
at this time, she would have been 10.
So you have 4 under 10.
Yeah.
That's a tough gig. I mean, kids are fantastic, but that's a tough gig for
Yeah.
your wife.
And it was really terrible is that since I worked at a furniture store, it looked like a house, and we would buy groceries because I'd eat most of my meals there. So the kids called that daddy's house. And then there's nobody else.
When
So,
they're talking to their friends, the daddy tells them always
yeah,
that.
so it seemed pretty terrible that way.
Okay, and now is your wife working outside the home at this point?
No, she's just working at home, stays at
Okay,
home.
so she's home all day alone with the kids, and this is not a 9 to 5 job. This is retail.
It's retail. I was going to work at 7 in the morning and getting off about 9:30. So I was pushing more than 12-hour shifts.
Oh my god.
And so it was rough. And so we and even the days off that I used to get, I lost because we lost some employees, lost some managers. And so it got to be where I was having to cover so much. So and that's why I was asking for help, but the company wasn't willing to help. They couldn't send anybody to me. So I finally we made a decision. My wife and I, and we had my parents on the phone till 2 a.m. Like, what's the best plan here? And finally my wife's like, well, I think you should resign. And it was just like that clear pause, and then that clarity, and it was like, felt right. It's like, oh, really? It's a 12-year commitment I put into this company. It's like worked my way up to get to this position. I was overseeing 3 different stores at this point too, but it was right. So it's like, I think you're right. And then she kind of confided too about how she was feeling very lonely, and
Yeah, yeah.
and I wasn't seeing my kids grow up. And so we decided to make that change. And happened to be the regional manager was in town that time. So I let him know, and he ended up having to run the store for a while. So I was like,
Oh my god.
so we left. And
Okay, so wait, sorry, I want to interrupt
sure.
because you just kind of breezed over this in a very humble way. This is a career. You were in a 12-year career. This wasn't just I mean, I certainly don't want to take away anything from salespeople, but you weren't just a guy selling furniture. You were in a leadership position. This is a career that you
Yeah.
had started,
Yep.
and you and your wife and your parents decided to walk away from it. That's a
Yep.
big leap of faith right there.
That was a big leap of faith. It was because it was supporting the family quite well. And it was, there was a lot of things about it that was like, why would we leave this? But I worked every single Sunday, and I worked way too many. There's a couple of weeks I worked 96 hours in a week.
Just to math
Even
it out,
Elon Musk,
there
that's a lot.
there are only 168 hours in a week, and
Yeah.
humans need to sleep. So,
So,
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
so it got to the point where it's kind of inhumane. It wasn't
Yeah.
sustainable. And so it was that plus, there was some other things, some of the decisions the company was making that unfortunately the owner of the company had retired, and the company now kind of gone to a corporate mindset versus a private, family owned company. So there was things that were kind of irritating. We didn't have individual vacation days anymore. You had to take just blocks of time, and that was it. And it was a trade. When my assistant manager go on vacation, I had to work all those days to cover. And then when I took my time off, she had to do the opposite. So we never actually got extra days off. You just swapped.
Yeah, yeah.
Things like that, to where it was already so difficult. So the time structure and the over, pushing of hours in retail was just enough. 12 hours of it, 12 years of it. So it was a big challenge and difficulty to leave that. But when we did, it was luckily the spirit confirmed it was right. And after I turned in my resignation and everything, I actually drove home and I was singing hymns. I was like free. It was just like, wow, I'm going to have some time. And so then I had a couple of weeks of vacation built up. So we took a little bit of break. And then my bishop at the time, this is up in Great Falls, Montana. And he was the regional manager for an insurance company called Aflac, if you haven't heard of that.
Aflac.
Aflac. So he said, hey, I've actually got opening for some reps to help out, to get them started. So I listened to the option and it sounded like a good opportunity. So I took that option and liked the idea of becoming my own boss and running my own agency. And so I went through the training, got my license, and started working with him. And it was a lot of fun. But Great Falls is a pretty small area for population, and there's only so much business an insurance agent can generate there. With the other reps that are already in place, I quickly discovered, over the year and a half that I was there, that most of the large accounts, had already
Yeah.
lined up. So I'm like, I need to move to a bigger market. And at this similar time, both my brothers had moved to the Salt Lake City Valley area, and so with their families, I'm like, that would be so cool to be closer. Also at this time, my son, who has arthritis, we were having to travel to Seattle or to Salt Lake for his appointments because there's only two children's hospitals that handle juvenile arthritis.
Okay.
It made sense. Like, well, this would be a lot easier to not travel so far. We'd already be in Salt Lake area. So we decided to sell our house and transfer my business down here. And so it was a bit of a leap of faith right there, but we did. And when we decided to sell our house, the house across the street sold. The lady sold it to an investor who was going to remodel it and do everything. And so she came over and said, yeah, I'm moving, I'm selling my house. I'm like, really, who's buying it? She
Yeah.
told us about this investor who buys, rebuilds. He's a builder and just kind of revamps them. And so we said, well, let's get his number. So we called him. He came over like 20 minutes later. He was like really fast. And about another 20 minutes later, he gave us an offer. And we're like, okay, I guess we're moving. It's really
Holy
fast.
cow.
So,
Wow.
so we're like less than an hour. We were called and had an offer and sold it. And
What year is this?
this was in 2017.
Okay. Okay.
So then it was a fair offer. So it was, we said, okay. So we didn't have to do realtor fees or anything like that. It was just straight over.
Wow.
So I quickly, actually, my brother, since he lived here, I moved down real quick. And while my wife was getting the house ready for us to move out of there, I came down here, kind of set up shop. Also I wanted to add property and casualty insurance. And so Farmers Insurance actually was also looking to add some agents. And so I interviewed with them, and they actually they accepted me into their program so I could add that into my repertoire.
Okay.
So we moved them down here, and we started living in West Jordan at the time. And it was a great little place. My kids, they were pretty young at the time, some of them, and a lot of them remember that as some of their best childhood years. So we
Okay.
lived there for a couple of years. That was a neighborhood kind of like where we are now, with just gobs of young kids, families with lots of young kids. It was just everywhere. And our house became the kid conglomeration.
Yes. Yes.
One time we counted, there's like 32 kids in our house. So it was fun. In fact, I had to show a friend one time. He stopped over. I said, "You want to see a magic trick?" And I pulled out of the cupboard a unopened box, Costco size Oreos.
Yes.
And I said, "Watch this." And I said, "Oreos." And within seconds, it was gone. There's so many kids came and decimated it. Like, watch it disappear in like 2 minutes.
Like, I don't like these magic tricks. These are expensive magic
That was
tricks.
fun. It was so much fun.
Okay.
And so things seemed to be going great. I mean, we were feeling the blessings. We'd gotten down there to move. And then the Lord was like, all right, we need to try us a little bit, and we're going to put some fire under you, and let's try your faith here.
So this is a year and a half after you left.
Yep. So we've been in Utah now for a year and a half, and seems
So,
like
so 3 years after you left the furniture company.
correct. Yep.
So 3 years. So for 3 years, you had kind of some smooth sailing.
Yep. So
Okay, carry on.
and it was nice. I got to know my kids a lot better because I worked from home and made my own hours. It was amazing. I made that 3 years was such a good bond with my kids, and developing that time with them. So I would never give that up. But then Farmers Insurance decided to raise their rates across the board, and they did it 2 times over a period of 6 months.
Okay.
All the business that I had written pretty much left. Went from, we were saving people about 10% to now we were the most expensive in the state. And as a new agent that doesn't have any renewals, you're trying to build to that, and all of a sudden everyone's leaving. That was terrifying. And then then one day a very sad email came over that Aflac decided to join forces with the brokerage houses for the big major medical companies that,
Mhm.
and they decided to strip all of us agents of our accounts that had over 100 employees. And so they just took everything and left us the peanuts, just a little
Yeah.
with. And so typically, like some of the accounts we work with would make you 30,000 a year was what you would make just in someone accounts, for enrollments, some of the school districts, etc. They took all those. And so it was just an email that was overnight. All of us agents were like, what?
Yeah.
And so there's about 70,000 agents nationwide that lost their lunch.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was hard. It was all within a couple of weeks that some of these major things hit. And then
Give us, if you remember, just give us a percentage of income lost.
70%.
70%. You lost 70% of your income
70% of my income just shaved right off.
in one email, basically.
Yeah, in one email. So it
Whoa.
was that was hard. That was
Yeah.
tough, especially after all the time and effort we put into these accounts and working with them. I'd actually been promoted to a regional account manager position to help with some of the corporate accounts for Aflac, and all those also went to the brokerage houses. And a little bit of background on that: the major medical companies used to make good commissions on what they sold in the medical field, but with the ACH and some of the changes, the commissions got cut in half like 8 times till there wasn't much commissions left. And so
Mhm.
they needed something else to sell. So they went to the Aflac, these ancillary products that companies like Aflac, and said, hey, we're already in all these other accounts. You let us sell your product. We'll bring you into these other accounts,
Yeah.
and they sweet
Yep.
talk. And I can understand why Aflac made the decision. It was a way to get into a lot of other new accounts they had access before, but it was a betrayal to us agents.
Oh wow.
That's the thing of being an independent agent is
Yeah.
you're not
You don't know in your book.
you don't own your book. So the way that
Okay.
went. Then at that same time, two of our really good friends, two different families that were really good friends of ours, end up leaving the church, and that was hard, just them losing their faith. And then the house that we were currently in, we're at the time renting. They decided they were going to sell it, so we're going to have to move from our neighborhood and all our friends there.
Mhm.
And then this there was some derogatory anti-Mormon literature that was being circulated. My wife started seeing some of this that her friends were sharing, and she's like, "Oh, this isn't very good. This is terrible to faith." And I was curious because my friends had left, and wanted to know more about this. And my wife felt terrible that she even told me about this. And I decided to read this. This is at the point where I was really being hit hard with all
Yeah.
this challenges. My faith was a little bit shaken. Paying tithing was getting to be a little bit more difficult.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
true sacrifice at this point. We had to apply for food stamps. We had to do some government assistance at that point. I even had to go to the bishop and say, okay, we're gonna have to get some, you know, I had never done that before. Like, we're gonna need some assistance for food because
Mhm.
they don't have any money all of a sudden. It's gone. And used to living on a certain budget, paying rent and your expenses at that point.
Yes.
And we'd also just had a new baby. So I
Number
was getting
five or no?
this was
Or,
number 6, actually.
so
So
you, okay, 6 kids.
6 kids, and one was a brand new baby. So I wasn't getting much sleep. And so just everything was kind of piled on. As a,
Yep.
as a man who's trying to provide for his family, with that being taken, everything kind of just falling out from under me. Now we're gonna have to move again. Now I'm having to get government assistance. The job's gone. I don't get much. The baby's a challenge. He, he
Yep.
he never slept. In fact, to this day, he sleeps the least number of hours of anyone in the family. So it was difficult. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So
Perfect storm.
it was hard. So then here I am at night reading this, this particular um, information that was very, as I've said it, and other people have said, it's a very deceptive document of information.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not just, a lot of that content out there isn't just to destroy faith. It's to destroy faith in not just church, but in God too.
Mm.
Noticed out of a lot of friends who left the church over some of these things is that they don't even believe in God anymore.
Yeah.
Um, Now, a little bit of background: my degree in college was in speech communications, and learning about, you know, the art of persuasion and the different fallacies and arguments and the different ways to deceive, and why the pen is mightier than the sword. We studied a lot of the, speeches of Hitler and Churchill and things like that.
Mhm.
And this particular document was very deceitful. And I was able to see that in some of the things that were shared were in that. And so I think my degree really helped me because I was able to quickly identify where there was challenges and realize this is not telling the truth. It's trying to be deceitful. But I could see where it was testing your faith. And it did make me question things. It was pretty powerful in the way that it made me rethink my testimony, especially at the low point that I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really, I was up to like 2 a.m. And then finally I found out my wife, she was crying because she found that I was reading this. She
Okay.
was
Yeah.
going to lose my testimony, and that
Sure.
she's going to lose my soul was going to be lost or something. So she was really, really worried. I said, no, I'm going to pray about this. And so the next several weeks, I did research and kind of went through some of the questions that I had, all of a sudden got out of this information. I don't recommend people do this. This is not a good exercise, especially if you're in a down situation in life.
Right. Right.
So it became very difficult, and having to go to the bishop and saying, hey, I don't know when I'm going to have more money. Like this whole insurance situation is toast. Like I'm not making any more money with farmers insurance. I'm not making more money with Aflac insurance. Like I'm gonna have to start from scratch. And so, he agreed. And so I had to humble myself a lot. And he had the high councilman come and help me rewrite my resume at the time, and say, we got to find you a job, because
Yeah.
it was terrible. And so during that time, trying to look for a new job and reevaluating my faith, it was one of the lowest points. You kind of, your ego's hit, your pride's hit, you're questioning a lot of things, and that was tough. And I remember having to consciously think, do I want to keep pushing forward, with the belief in this faith in the church and service, or would it just be easier to just let that go, And I remember had a little office in the basement. I got on my knees and I prayed and I said, I got to know, if this is worth moving forward. And I just got a small peace come over me that just said, just keep moving forward. It was just kind of that simple message. And so I said, all right. And so I said, I will turn to the Lord. It's kind of that, that you're talking about here. And so I told the bishop, said, whatever it is, I don't care what kind of job it is. Let's just find something to make money for the family right away. I just need something. And so they were looking and looking. Lo and behold, as I was searching online, this company I'd never heard of before until I moved down here, called Vivint Smart Home. Everyone knows it here in Utah. They're hiring. They hire all the time. And it was a call center job for, college people. But here I'm like, well, I can apply to that. So it was kind of humbling to say, I'm going to apply for this kind of a job. I don't want to do call center work, but you can make pretty good money quickly, I hear. So I applied to it. They called me. Since I had a lot of experience in sales, they interviewed me and they said, yeah, we'd love to have you come on. And so I went in, did an in-person interview, and then started. And I was terrible. I was absolutely terrible as a call for the first couple of weeks. And the manager on my team, he actually took me in. He's like, I don't think this is for you. And he's like, I think you need to go. It was terrible. And I'm like, I'm trying to do a job. I was just like, Lord, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And I was like, this is not working. Boss doesn't like me.
That's awesome.
And so it just got even worse.
Nephi's like, I'll build a ship. And then 3 weeks in, the Lord's like, that's not a very good ship, Nephi. We got
a canoe here. We need a ship that holds a whole
we got to work something else out.
And so I was sure I was going to be let go by this guy. And then all of a sudden I show up to work one day, like, oh, he quit. My boss did.
Okay.
And you're going to be put on this new team. And I'm like, oh, that's like a clean slate for me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to double down and see if I can figure out how to sell this security system at the time. And so I was listening to some of the top guys. I started to listen to recorded calls and I'm like, I've got to learn this. This is out of my element. It's not the kind of sales I've done, because this is fast. Like you're doing 30 calls a day inbound and you're trying to pitch this. And I wasn't used to that kind of pace, or, trying to give tiny amounts of information in tiny amounts of time.
Yes.
Because I'm the kind of person that wants to give a more elaborate, informed decision. And so it took some interest, and I didn't end up making my calls longer than most people, but the Lord did bless me, and it did work as I learned this and put the time and effort into it. It was painful, and it was humiliating because they're listening to your calls and as a team and recordings. And here I'm the oldest guy in the room,
Yeah, yeah.
and this is my 40s, and everybody there's like in their 20s. There was one other guy that's about my age, and it was just like, this is tough. It's tough to be from where I've been a manager, overseeing I had 86 people under me at one point, overseeing all these different store people, and it was so awesome being a leadership position. And now being a call center guy, you
Yeah.
know, it was tough. And as much as the team was they were good people. I do have to say that they were good people. They tried to help me out, and I started to get better and better at it. And by the second year, I started to really ramp up, and not only was I starting to close deals well, but I started to really follow up with the installer and the customers and get the installs actually going in. There's two main metrics in those scenarios: how much can you close, but how much can you get to actually install? So a lot of people canceling that
Yes.
window. And to this day, I probably don't have my record being broke, as I got to be where I had a 98% install rate. That's almost impossible.
Wow.
I lost 2% of my sales.
Wow.
So I became the most efficient rep for the number of calls to the number of installs. That's one of the rewards. So I ended up getting a corner office with a window, and I actually ended up making my final year is there. I made the most money I ever made in my life. So
Okay.
you can make good money there. So, and but it's mind numbing. Taking 30 something calls a day and pitching those is mind numbing work.
Oh, wow.
So it was a ride. I did that for a couple of years. I think 2.5 years is what we did there. And then they completely revamped the pay structure because the corporate made some changes, and our senior vice president of sales, he did not like the changes. Like, we just set the record for the most installs and sales for the company as a department. We beat even the field reps, our
Mhm.
inside sales department. And now you guys want to cut the commissions? It's like, why? They'd make money selling it. And he was
Right.
upset, and that he wouldn't agree with it, that they said you have to leave. So he ended up leaving and joining a different security company. So we lost him. A new guy came in his spot, and he was terrible.
Okay.
And so about 30% of us migrated away and said this, because our pay structure, they changed it so much that we made about half.
Yes.
It goes back to that. All right, we got to change again.
Wow.
So luckily, while I had been working there, they had did a pilot program with Vivint Solar, a sister company. They
Hmm.
were trying to see if some of us reps could sell security to existing, or say sell solar to existing security customers,
Hmm. Hmm.
cross selling there. And that was kind of fun. I actually got to be part of that and meet the guy who's over solar in the solar division from the solar side. And so we tried it it was like a 3-week period, and they decided to transfer it over to the other reps in the solar division, because solar is a lot to learn, and
Okay.
we would need to go through a lot more training. So they pulled it from us, but I was in that short period, I really liked what I learned about solar. So
Yes.
after I quit, I called up that other guy, said, well, actually, I'm available if you'd like to have me work over there. And so he did. So to this day, I'll put his name out there. Tim Reinhardt is one of the best people I've ever worked for.
Oh, that's fantastic.
In leadership, especially in a senior sales management position, your job is to motivate people and inspire them, and to make it an exciting workplace, because you don't have to write people up for being late. That's a regular team manager's job. Your
Yes.
job is to encourage and help people to do better, and train and inspire. And he did that perfectly. And so I joined the solar division, and that was excellent. I mean, solar is a really neat aspect. It's, there's a lot of things I like about it. So there's also some sides of it where some reps can be
Sure.
dishonest.
Sure. As with
There's that many
anything.
numbers in place.
Yeah. Yeah. As with anything.
But I did solar for several years, and then Sunrun ended up buying them out. So that all kind of changed. So anyway, now I work for MPLC, Motion Picture Licensing.
Okay. Okay.
But I want to get back to that change, is that the Lord did really try me. And by turning to him and being humble, and it was hard. I had to pray, like, I don't want to go to work, Lord. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to listen to another 30 people that want security.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be this guy on the team that's kind of awkward. But I pushed through it, and eventually, yeah, we got the income we needed to get us back on our feet. And it helped us to eventually get to the place where I could move into a job like solar, which was more along the lines of the kind of job I wanted, a more professional job, different kind of clientele. It was a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and it seems like there are two threads. Just number one, focusing on the economic roller coaster that you are on, and it just so happens that this week in Come Follow Me, we're studying Habakkuk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I've heard it
Yeah,
Habakkuk or Habakkuk, but where and they're talking about, he's saying, Lord, I want you to answer my prayers, and he says, and the Lord says, okay, we're going to have the Assyrians come in and punish the wicked. And the prophet says, I don't want you to answer my prayers that way. I want you to answer my prayers the way that I want them answered. And it seems like your story is something that we can relate to a lot of. You're at a high point in your life, and then you get humbled. You get down, whether we lose our job or we have a wayward child or something. We pray and we say, Heavenly Father, I need help. And Heavenly Father says, okay, here's how I'm going to help you. And you say, no, that's not the help that I wanted. That's hard work. What you're giving me is hard work. What I actually want is help. And Heavenly Father says, I know, just trust me and put your boots on, because it's time to work.
And I remember saying, this is beneath me almost, to work in this kind of situation from my experience, what I have. But the Lord's like, no, this is what, if you need money right now, this is what I have available.
Okay, so right now, potentially somebody is listening to this, and they are at the position where they've just lost 6 figures, and now they're looking, and the bishop is saying, hey, look, I know this doesn't cover your bills, but I want you to put in 4 hours a week at DI, at Desert Industries. Or I've got a buddy who's got a lead at the local fast food restaurant. This is nowhere near going to cover your bills, but it's what's available right now. What do you say to that person, Eric? What do you say to them?
Take a deep breath and realize that it's pretty fun to stock shelves at the cannery. I got to do that. And it's a humbling experience to the core. Like you kind of have to take your heart out, drop it, take a deep breath, and say, I'm going to pick it back up. And I'm going to say, okay, Lord, you wanted my heart. It's a little broken. I'm feeling really terrible. This is hard. But there's no other option. To me, it was like, if I don't turn to the Lord, if I just rebel, it goes against my beliefs, it goes against my covenants. And so I'm grateful the fact that I've made covenants, because that was one of the things that was key in me staying and not just rebelling and just saying, forget this all, it's too hard. It was like, I've made covenants. I do believe in them. I want them to work out in the long run, the blessings to come to pass. And there's that if aspect, and I'm like, well, and actually when you brought up Job, I really kind of, not to his level, but I felt like, well, this is kind of a Job experience for me, within a short period of time of a couple of years to now having, to work in the cannery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to dig down in your soul and say, what am I going to give to the Lord? There was a drawing, one of my favorite drawings. It was 2 stick figures. One is a person and one's Christ. Okay, just stick figures. And the stick figure is holding a little heart. Everything's black and white, but the heart's red. And the stick figure says, this is all I have to offer. And the Christ says, that's all I want.
Wow. Please join us for part 2 of Eric Richardson's story.